For this Departmental December challenge, we're looking at HR data. So let's just take a look at what we get as an input. So we get an input of the name of each employee, what months they've worked, their annual salary, and how many sales they've made. Okay, so what we want to do first of all is calculate the employment range. So something that I had to do when I first did this challenge that I didn't then have to do when I've updated my version of Tableau Prep is that I had to make sure that I made this in the CSV input, or in the input step, sorry, then I changed this locale to be English United Kingdom because the dates are written in UK format rather than in US format. So make sure that you have that selected so that when you come to create your employment range, you get the correct dates coming through. So the way that I did this, I used an LOD on the start date. To create the start date. So do the minimum of the date, so the first date that they appear in the dataset. Similarly, for the end date, I used the maximum date, and then I could write this calculated field, which is a bit long, but not too difficult. So I'm taking the left of the date name of the start date. So, okay, even saying that, it made it sound quite difficult, didn't it? So, okay. I'm looking at my start date. I'm using the date name function to take the month of that start date. So if I look at Carl here, then he started on the 1st of April 2020. So that would return for me April. I want just the first 3 letters of that, so I use the left function. There we go. That makes more sense. So I get the APR bit, then I add in a space in between, and then I do use the str function to make this a string rather than a number when I take the year of the start date. So the reason that I'm using the year function here and the date name function there, I could have used the date name function here as well, but I can't use the month function here basically because that would return to me the numeric month rather than the name of the month. So that's why I did that there, and that's why I've had to use the string here and not there. And then I just similarly add in the 2, and then it's very similar for the end date there. Okay, hopefully that calculation made sense. I'll hit save, and now we've calculated our employment range. Then I'm looking at the reporting year. So what I did is I duplicated this date field. So right click and go to duplicate, or there's a duplicate field option at the top here. Went into the convert dates option, and I chose to convert that date into a year. I could also have made a function where I took the year value out of it, but this is the way that I thought would be easier. I could try and avoid writing a function as much as I can in prep. It's easier just to use the clicking interface. Okay, so now I'm aggregating this data. So I'm grouping by the name and the employment range, the reporting year that we're looking at, their annual salary, and then I'm counting the distinct dates. So that would be how many months have they worked in that year, and I'm summing up all the sales that they made. So rather than this being a data set that's at the monthly level, now it's looking at the reporting year level instead. So I want to know how much salary were they paid in each year. So I've just renamed that date field to number of months worked, so that then when I do the number of months worked over 12 times by the annual salary, rounding that to 2 decimal places, I can work out how much salary they were paid in that year. So for example, Carl in this year worked 12 months, so therefore he'd get his whole salary. Whereas here, he only worked 3 months, and therefore he gets a quarter of his salary. Okay, and then we're looking at the tenure next. So this is a running sum of the number of months worked. So how do we do that? So this partition and order by syntax is kind of what's going on in the background when you use the ranking interface in prep. So we're partitioning on the name. So that's like saying for each name, we want to order by the reporting year in an ascending order, and we want to do a window sum, so a running sum of the number of months worked. And that's how we get to the tenure. Finally, we want to calculate that bonus. So the bonus is 5% of the sales that they managed to make that year. And then the total that they would have been paid in that year would have been their bonus plus their salary. And we remove a couple of unnecessary fields. And that is getting us to our desired output. So hopefully you enjoyed that challenge, and thank you very much for watching.